I am with the 5th graders today, and I also journeyed with some 5th graders yesterday. That's all I can say, you know. Really have to keep up with their energy, and my heart goes out to all the teachers in basic education as well as to parents of young children. O yan, diba? So much energy, which is great. Which is great. There's some of the things I realized about our young people. First of all, we are not dealing with millennials anymore. You know, for those who use the generic word millennials to mean the young people, the young generation of today, it's the millennials are now working. They're now young professionals. In fact, the generation we have now, which is 19 years old and younger and down, they're actually Gen Z, Generation Z. And yesterday, I got to journey with some Gen Z students. And I learned a lot, no, about how teaching is evolving, how interacting with our youth today is also quickly evolving and changing. So what's one thing that I noticed? I'm sure you know their attention span is shorter and shorter, gets shorter and shorter by the day, and as my audience gets younger and younger, Miss Yumi gets older and older. And the patience level, the level of understanding, the level of patience that we need to have as educators and formators, it's different. Yes, we need more of it, quantity. But there's also a shift or a change in the kind of attention, the kind of guidance that they need. As I always say, basic courtesy is no longer basic nowadays. Simple things like a thank you, which back in the day was so normal, was almost automatic, instantaneous, right? Nowadays, basic things like courtesy and thank you and apologizing for one's faults doesn't come basic or common anymore. And I always remind myself that these are kids, no? These are young people. And as I learned in my CEFAM classes last summer, don't focus on the identified patient. Don't focus on the child being at fault. See how the system around it is also at fault, and how adults, we the adults who surround them, are also in a very important position to guide them, to correct also, no, fraternal correction, to correct also their weaknesses. They're kids. I need to remind myself of that all the time. So common courtesy, not as common as it used to be. It has not only to be taught, said, like say thank you or say sorry, but more than that, it's really showing, no? Living it as adults, whether parent, teacher, formator, campus minister, really living it and showing the young people of today that it's important to us. And if it's important to us and they see the value of it, then they too will follow suit. That they will understand the rationale for doing certain things. So what I learned is that, you know, our young kids, they're more rambunctious and kulit as ever, and they like asking questions, which is great. I mean, if I compare that to my youth, I would just accept whatever my teacher says, right? Which has its wisdom as well. But nowadays, kids, they're not afraid to ask. Thing is, sometimes the way it's asked or the way it's said may not be the most appropriate or the most respectful, and that's how we come in. That's where we come in. That we need to also remind them or show them that it doesn't mean you can say anything and everything at any time. That there are certain conventions, that there are certain conventions that we still need to uphold, like basic courtesy and respect. So I experienced these past few days from different schools, grade school level. A classmate says an unusual answer, and all of a sudden someone just blurts out, "What? Why?" in that tone of voice. yun, they blurt out things, no? In general, kids, not just the school I'm in, but in general, lower school level children, they love asking questions. They like challenging you, which has its place, which is good. But they also have to be reminded that it's not a license to say anything and everything, which can border towards borderline entitlement. No? So it's a good reminder that to actually role model how to ask questions in a way that is not offensive to other people, in a way that is not destructive but constructive. You know, these kids, one of the gifts that the Gen Z have is that they learn super fast. If we adults of our time take some time, no, medyo mabagal tayo mag-warm up minsan, they learn really fast, especially if they know that you are being sincere at may pakialam ka sa buhay nila. No? Hindi lang yung, you're not just giving them verbal diarrhea, do this, do that, because I said so. But if they see that you also live and breathe the very things that you are showing them, and you live and breathe these basic things that are good for them, then they will follow without being asked, because they see your authenticity and your sincerity. So just to give an example, so a while ago, I mean, I'm such a stickler for saying thank you and stickler for apologizing if at fault. And it's common for young people nowadays. They ask you something, they ask you a question, and in the end, they just say, okay, and then they leave, right? I'm sure the parents of today can relate with that. And I usually respond by saying, you're welcome, even if the thank you was not given. No? To give a cue or a clue that there is something that ought to be said when you ask something from someone, say thank you. And some kids found it odd. No? Parang they ask me something and then they don't say anything, and as they exit, I just say, you're welcome, with a smile. And they scratch their head, some scratch their head, some go, huh? Some don't get it, no? As I said, basic is not basic anymore. But some do come back and say, oh, sorry, miss, thank you. And just this morning, many kids asked me questions about the activity we did for recollection. They're good kids, very inquisitive, very wise. But there's this one little girl, so cute. After asking her question, she said, she looked back with her sweet smile, and she said, thank you, miss. Buong-buo. Maaring karamihan sa atin, so what? That's nothing big, Yumi. But to me it is. If you are in the classroom of today, an unsolicited thank you or a smile or a hug is so much. It means so much. And I have to point that out in today's discussion. And I even, asked her to stand and be recognized. And you could see her face is turning red. She was smiling and shy at the same time, no? That she was recognized for something good. So teachers, parents, if there are milestones like that happen, set aside your lesson plan, set aside whatever it is you need to do, and just pause and recognize it. Please recognize good behavior. They are fleeting, and once that happens, and it cannot be repeated, baka hindi ma-reinforce yung lesson na yon, which is, ay, importante pala kay miss, kay mama, kay papa, yung pagsabi ko ng thank you or paggawa ko ng mabuti. And that's how we build character once, these milestones, these moments are reinforced. And I'm telling you, when they know that you're watching and you are sincere and that you are really making yourself present there, they will remember. They do. So over lunch, they're having lunch right now. There are three girls who just came to me, and then one hugged me and said, thank you, miss. And she hugged me. So they're listening, no? Some of us, we might think that, they're a little bit rowdier and more energetic than before. And they need it, because they're digital kids. They're just cramped in their room, playing with computer games. So when they are energetic, that's good. It's a sign they're alive and they're breathing. They need fresh air and they need exercise, right? So when kids like that come and realize something after all the dust has settled and have settled, and then they come back and say thank you without being asked, makes you feel like, wow, they're really listening. And sometimes, we get impatient, we adults we get impatient, and we think, oh, they're not listening or they don't care. But they do. And whenever they say things like, what or why, in a sarcastic manner or an impulsive manner, we are there to redirect them. And most often than not, they don't say it to intentionally hurt us. I learned that the hard way. I've been corrected many times by high school groups, and they apologize and say, no, miss, we didn't mean to hurt you or to hurt other people. It's just that I guess sometimes they're just so used to speaking out of turn, and it's not redirected to a more appropriate way. So catch those moments, no? Catch those moments. Don't let it pass. Huwag palagpasin. Kasi these are the teachable moments that no textbook or no classroom lecture can replace. I'll stop with 3 things. The kids are watching. Don't think they aren't. And if ever they do speak out of turn or say something that might be offensive to you, find out the context, no? Most often than not, they don't really mean to hurt you. And it is our responsibility as the adult to redirect them by showing them, through example, how best to respond. And third, it's not millennial anymore, guys. It's Gen Z. And so to keep up with these young kiddos, it's a different brain wiring altogether, which is our responsibility to find out. So I'm gonna go back now and I'm going to continue to get to know these young people. Please continue to pray for us.